Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am Gaming King, aka Gaming King 007.
And I am your lovely Sunday Scrub Lord Smabb on today's Tuesday video, which is instead of just mystery videos, it's just been turned straight into the review video. So I hope you like what you're about to hear, and if it's informative, give it a like. If you didn't care for it, please just tell me in the comments. Without further ado, we're going into the review for Genshin Impact. We're going to start with the world and its combat. The good thing about combat is that it generally seems to have a nice flow. In other games, when you end up fighting an enemy that has an element, for example, you could just pick an element opposite to your enemy and you'd win. With Genshin's combat flow, it tends to be a bit more different because when you end up fighting enemies and you use the opposite element and say a second element, you could cause a massive elemental explosion to finish them off. And with four different characters in a team, you can chain those elemental combos to do some great damage. It's quite different from most games that use an elemental combat system.
Here's the
Gamin?
bad part of it, though. In combat, all weapons feel the same. For some reason, weapons like tomes, spheres, spears, two-handed swords, and the one-handed swords do about the same damage at almost the same rate, regardless of what you use. Now, bosses. This one's a fun one. Here's the good thing about it. Brayus Wolf and Dvalin, aka Storm Terror, are both really interesting fights because they conduct combat differently, with minimum to no overlap. Dvalin focuses on ranged and using wind-based damage, while Brayus focuses on getting in your face with close range and dealing out ice damage. The stasis, are no exception. The air attacks created by twisters, etc., while Earth type uses constructs to cause damage over time. Lately, the electric type is capable of. Oh, lastly, the electric type is capable of shooting lasers. Cool.
The bad side about this, however, is the small amount of world bosses. Currently, pending the next big update that they end up adding, there's just about 8 that we've found so far, with about 90 plus hours of collective playtime between the both of us, with one being locked through a character quest and another through the actual story missions. And the only other 3 bosses that are of any actual variety in their type are the Hypnostasis of Air, Electro, Arrow, and Geo, and there may be another one. Is there?
There might be one hidden, maybe if we're lucky, or maybe the update will add one. But for now, until disproven, maybe just run with the fact that it's
Yeah, and well, and that is kind of a really big shame, as the Regisvine doesn't have any real variety between the two types, fire and ice. The only other 2 bosses worth repeatedly fighting are Storm Terror and the Boreas Wolf. But you can't actually fight them repeatedly, as one of them has a ridiculous timer between fighting them, such as the Boreas Wolf of 16 hours. The 8th boss, the Oceanid, is found around rank 27 and currently is far too hard for us to even try and fight it, so we can't give a proper proper piece to it. But we both ended up agreeing that the difficulty curve on that fight, it's way too frickin' high.
not to mention it can affect others' future.
Yeah, it is. But on that note, let's move on to the next portion of exploration and puzzles. Gamin?
As the one with the most experience, it is only proper I lead. The good. The only good thing about exploration is the beautiful vistas. When you climb up mountains, the real reward is when you stop to look around. If you're like me, you'll get a kick out of thinking there's something very suspicious with the area around uh, a puzzle. Now, when it comes to that, either these puzzles will drain the water, revealing a dungeon, or something else.
Now, the bad when it comes to this stuff is when you're exploring the world in this game, it's. Oh, excuse me. Ugh. Food. When it comes to exploring the world in this game, the biggest fact is that most of the world is actually empty, with mainly the same enemies to fight, those being hilly trolls and elemental mages, and the only real fun thing about the exploration is when you do. Puzzles aren't too bad unless you end up spending upwards to 30 to 40 minutes trying to figure them out if you're not good with puzzles as I am, because then it just becomes not so fun. That's from a personal experience. Now, on the gotcha system and the battle pass, I personally find that there are nice things about them. The nice thing about the gotcha system is that you can use a secondary currency called Primogen, then you tend to get this at a fairly decent rate in early game. This allows you to go through the game and not spend any actual real world money. You can play the game in about 7 days to get to enough Primogen to actually get a hero or two from the gotcha system. The only real good thing about the Battle Pass, however, is that you can use Primogen to get a decent rate to get further into the Battle Pass itself rather than just spending money wildly and wasting stuff that you could put to something else.
Now, as the chump who did buy the Battle Pass, uh, here's the big issue with it. The Battle Pass is pointless, a waste of development time, money, and a waste of effort. The only worthwhile crap reward for the Battle Pass is locked off to the $10 and $20 passes, just so you can get one overpowered weapon in order to get a mostly broken weapon. Uh, or most broken to tied for least broken. There's the god tier one-handed sword. There's the spear, the two-handed sword, then the spear or bow. The other thing you can get for the battle pass, your big reward for having the battle pass, Mora. Mora, and guess what? Some more Mora. And if you pay for the $20 version, don't you worry, you get a kinda crappy name card. There's more, but I don't want this to last longer than the Odyssey.
Now, when it comes to the story and the grind, the story of this game in the early hours is pretty amazing, and the characters you meet are of all wide and variety and varying personalities. The interesting thing about this is that you will not end up finding one playable character with the exact same personality. The downside is that's about the best part. But
Oh
I'll
boy.
leave more of the downside to Gamin.
Yeah, to the chump. Here's the bad news. The grind. First, the game heavily incentivizes you to not play the game. Why? With 8 and above hour long respawn timers for both bosses and dungeons, you will get slim to nothing in overall EXP gained. The only effective way to get adventure rank XP is if you complete one of the only 4 commission quests you get a day. Yay.
And with that, we lead on to the exhaustive list of co-op. There's there's no pros about co-op. I'm gonna leave Gaiman talking about this cause he was my co-op buddy.
And also, he's the one who raged the hardest. Mm-mm-mm. Warm feelings. Here we go. In co-op, you cannot open chests. You cannot interact with mission NPCs. You cannot interact with merchant NPCs. half of the puzzles you can't trigger with your buddy. More than half the dungeons you can't do together. The game will lag whenever working together, or if one of you needs to change their lineup. If you have two people, you and your partner are limited to two characters. However, as Steven Messner, an editor from PC Gamers, pointed out, and made me more depressed about, that if you have three or more people with you, the host will have two characters, while everyone who joined only gets one. Yay!
Now, we're on a little nitpicks section where it's just we'll generally spitball a few things. I've written down a small little bit, and I'll let you riff on whatever you feel. Now, my main nitpick is that basically I'm not a big fan of how you get your characters, minus 3 or 4 from the gacha system. I kind of wish they made it so that when you ended up finishing a character quest, you would basically be given that character after the character's quest was done. Any
My biggest nitpick would be there's no reason, rhyme, or sanity behind having your co op system so broken when that's supposed to be your biggest draw. Why do I want to go and play with my buddies on a buggy crap quest where every 5 minutes we're gonna have to stop playing together so we can get the mission done? Or just to turn a mission in, gain our bonuses for achieving the next rank. We can't do any of these things without having to stop over and over again. Why?
Alright, we got our final thoughts and hopes, which is damn near the end of this. When I played this game, like, a month or two ago, I loved it despite all its faults. And now and then I will end up picking it up just to see what's happening, play, maybe level up my adventurer rank a bit. But there's a serious lack of diversity when it comes to your enemies, especially on the low end, which is pretty much the entire game currently. You basically end up just fighting the Hilly Trolls and Elemental Mages. They're your main fucking enemy to fight. It's annoying. I also want to see what kind of characters I meet and what the story ends up having to offer, but with the massive grind, can't do that very well. But I hope that in the next few months to a year that this game gets its co-op together and gets this grind sorted out, and that they listen to fan feedback, because that's what this video is after all. Just two fans of the game who want to see this thing get better.
And now me. Oh joy. So, even though there are tons of issues, I do still love this game. I think there is a massive amount of potential. And I can't wait to see the day it manages to fully use said potential. But for now, I feel like it's taking that potential and not just ignoring it, but completely squandering every last drop.
Now, my score for this game, I gave it on my first video. I actually ended up giving it a 6 or a 7. It was pretty high. I was in mad infatuation with this game, but with the extended time that I ended up playing, that video is now out of date as I lift it down to a 4.5 out of 10. This game is worth playing, but you gotta be aware of that goddamn grind past Adventurer rank 16.
So, as much as I love the game, and as much as I was loving it so much to a point where I was giving it a 7, and feeling that it could have achieved more easily, it hurts to say this, the game is probably the most painful 4 out of 10 game I have ever experienced in my life. That's a pretty hard drop, and that's pretty fast from someone who loved it and thought it could do amazing to a 4.
So, as I stated, I say it's worth giving it a shot if you got the time. It's worth giving it a play. Gamin, what do you think? Is it worth giving it a play?
I, as much as I want to say yes, it's tough to say yes because there's so many issues and all the problems. Until I see huge radical change upwards, uh, I say maybe in the future. I just don't feel it's worth the, especially with all the micros that are so in your face. I don't feel it's worth it right now. Maybe in the future.
Alright, and with that, we've said our piece on this game. I'm your Sunday Scrub Lord, and if you play the game, I hope you find enjoyment in it. I'm signing out.